Welcome to Fantastic Books and where to find them. Today we are speaking Shadowhunters. More specifically, the entire Chronicles of the Shadowhunters, because there are so many books. Like, really, a lot of books. And this isn't it. This doesn't include the novellas or anything else. There are a lot of books. And there are at least, I believe, 14 published books in this series. 14! That's a lot of books for any series. And that includes the main story, novellas, and there's a couple of little extras in there. But they're all not required reading, but I've required reading them. So, no, they're all worth a read. So, I'd get started now because Lord of Shadows, which is the newest instalment, comes out on May 23rd. I totally had to look on my hand to see what date that was. I'm that prepared. I apologise in advance. I am just getting over a cold, so I still sound a bit gross. But I promise you I'm not gross. Not any more than usual anyway. So, we're going to talk about Shadowhunters Chronicles. We're going to talk about what order to read them in. Because being so many books and over so many different time periods, they can be a bit difficult to get your teeth into. So I want to get you guys prepped and ready for Lord of Shadows in May. So let's get started. So for the first part of reading, we start with City of Bones, which was the first published book. So it makes sense to start from here. Although it's not chronologically the first book, but it makes sense, trust me. And then after that, you want City of Glass and then City of Ashes. That's because these three, along with the first published, were originally just meant to be a trilogy. They were just going to be these three books, and as far as I can tell, that was meant to be it. So these three are meant to be read together. So start with these three. These start in 2007, I believe early 2007. I can't got exact dates, but yeah, those ones first. That help establish the world, a lot of the characters in it, and it makes everything else a lot more smooth sailing to read those ones first. So those three. Next up we have the Infernal Devices series, which consists of Clockwork Angel, Clockwork Prince, and Clockwork Princess. These three books are technically the first chronologically speaking, and are set in 1878, which is about 129 years prior to the Mortal Instruments books you would have just read. Well, those three anyway. So these follow the story of Tessa Gray. She will come into the other series books a fair bit, well, occasionally should I say, and names are dropped. A lot of the elders of the characters we see in the Mortal Instruments books are mentioned in here, and there is a nice big tie-in with the last Mortal Instrument books and this. So you want to read these. I mean, you're not going to completely lose out if you don't. There'll be a few bits you don't get. But if you're trying to get through as quick as possible and you want to skip these, go for it. But if you want to read them after City of Ashes and before City of Fallen Angels, I'm checking my notes. I apologise. I don't want to get it wrong. So yeah, those three. These are probably, I loved these three. Although I liked the other books as well. I think this series are probably my favourite books out of the whole lot. They're really good and they're completely heartbreaking, and I love them. But yeah. Check them out. Next up we return to the Mortal Instruments series. We have City of Fallen Angels and City of Lost Souls. There is another book that comes after these in the Mortal Instruments, but I'd recommend in between these two and the last one to go for the Bane Chronicles. This is a set of novellas featuring around the warlock Magnus Bane, who is lovely. They were originally released on Kindle, but then put in this lovely little hardback, or not little, it's lovely hardback book. And they're not required reading. You don't have to read these, but if you are going to read them, this is the point to do it. Because at the end of these, there is, I believe, a chapter or two relating to the end of City of Lost Souls. So you're going to want to read that before you then go on to the Heavenly Fire, just to keep it. I know chronologically speaking isn't the way we're completely going with this series, but it just makes more sense to do that. So if you're going to read it then. I highly recommend it. It's funny, it's sweet, and it gives a lot more character background. Like if you've obviously read about Tessa in the Infernal Devices, I'm pretty sure she features in this as well. It's been a while since I've read it, but I know it's good. I know it's good, you need to read it. And then next up we have the last book from the Mortal Instruments series, and that is City of Heavenly Fire. As I said, a lot of the events at the end of this, or some of the events at the end of this, tie in to the Infernal Devices book, which is why you should have read it back when I told you to, with any luck, and not afterwards, because otherwise it won't make any sense. And I'm really glad that I did read them in the right order, and it made this book so much better. It was a really good book anyway, but some of the events that happen, it just ties everything up really, really nicely. Then after City of Heavenly Fire, we're done with the Mortal Instruments after that, but we do have a nice new book of novellas. These are Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy, and they feature mainly Simon Lewis and what he does from there. There are 10 novellas, and they stretch over about 2 years. So not City of Bones, but the City books, the Mortal Instruments books, finished about 2008, mid-2008. This will start in 2008 and end in 2010. And it's just, I would say this is required reading. Although they're novellas, and they're not one of the official, well, they are official. Well, not one of the big books, as it were, although it is physically big. You have to read these. You have to read these. There's stuff that happens, and it is so important, and in some ways heartbreaking, as many of the other books are. They're enjoyable, they're good, and you need to read them before you carry on with anything else, because otherwise certain events won't make sense, and it's just too good. You have to. It's just, if you're going to read any of these books, read this one. I mean, obviously you have to read the others to make sense, but if there's any of the ones you're going to skip out on, don't skip out on this one. Don't do it. It's brilliant. And now this brings us to the Dark Artificers trilogy. There is only one book currently released in this series, and that is Lady Midnight. And this is set, I believe, 4 years after the Mortal Instruments, and I think 2 years after the events that occur at the end of Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy. This is a whole new set of people. We do get, I mean, they have been mentioned in the Mortal Instruments beforehand, and we do have some characters from the Mortal Instruments books in this series. It's really good. It's a really nice new series. They have completely broken away, and it's a whole new storyline, which I really, really like. And it's still interesting, and it's still set in the same world, obviously, which makes it really good. It's quite a chunky book, and it's so pretty. I have seen the nice hardback editions that have been out, but unfortunately, this is the version I got on release. But it's really, really pretty, and it's a really good book. The character's a little bit older than at the beginning of the Mortal Instruments. I don't mean the same characters, but the characters that are mainly featured in this are a little older, which I quite liked a bit. I always used to forget how young Clary and Jason, everyone were in them, but they're a lot older now as well, obviously. But this is the first of, I believe, what's going to be 3 books. The second one is going to be Lord of Shadows, which is what I'm hopefully prepping you guys for. That is out May 23rd. I looked at my hand again. And then I believe we're getting a 3rd book after that, but no details have been announced at the moment. But there has been announced that we will have another, I'm assuming another trilogy. They've not said which way. They said series. But it'll probably be a trilogy, I imagine. I think Mortal Instruments is technically 2 trilogies put together. Infernal Devices is a trilogy. The Dark Artificers is going to be a trilogy. So it makes sense that the Wicked Powers is going to be a trilogy as well. And this is sent to be the conclusion to the Shadowhunter Chronicles. So that should be the way it ends. Apparently the Dark Artificers is going to end with questions, and there's going to be certain things that aren't known, and it sounds like it's going to... No, it's not going to suck, but the way we're going to feel about it is probably going to suck a little bit. But we shall see. We've got probably a few years to go before we're done with that. In addition to the other books in the series, they're all novels. These next 2 books aren't required reading, and aren't actually novels or stories. We have Highness Codex, which is a mock textbook sort of thing, and it has some illustrations and some little annotations that are meant to be done by, I believe, Clary and Simon. On there, you've got Clary. Oh, you've got loads of different people in here. So yeah, it is a really cute little fun book, and it's just handy. It's got loads of little the runes in there. I love that it has some of the runes and things in the book, and it's a nice little guide. It's nice to have. And then I love this book, An Illustrated History of Notable Shadowhunters and Denizens of the Downworld. Now I have seen this described, or with different covers, I say, saying about having this top with flowers, and it actually is. I didn't realise that each character has a flower incorporated into their picture, or flowers, like he has petals behind there as well, and it's beautiful. It's just basically what it sounds like. It is a book of pictures, but they're beautiful pictures. And they have characters from the Infernal Devices, The Last Hours, The Mortal Instruments, Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy, and The Dark Artificers. Now, The Last Hours, I'm pretty sure I heard was meant to be, what I thought was meant to be another series, was going to be in between the Infernal Devices and the Mortal Instruments. Looking at this, actually, that's probably going to be the case, because The Last Hours is, in the contents, set between those two. So, and the Wicked Powers aren't mentioned. Maybe my info is out of date. I'll have to have a look into that. But it's beautiful. You've got Lego Simon, for example, there. And it's just absolutely beautiful. Again, this isn't required reading. It just has a little bit of text, about the characters in there. Although I would probably wait until you've read all the other books to read this, just in case there's anything that spoils there. Just with the family names and some of the info in there as well. It's probably best to wait until you read that. It could be a treat to yourself when you've read them all. Well, that's going to be a lot of books to read. But yeah, once Lord of Shadows comes out, I'm going to read it as soon as I can. I've pre-ordered it to come on release, and we'll do a talk about that when that comes out as well. I want to talk to you quickly about my current read. I am 90% of the way through Truthwitch. And I don't know if I'm going to do a book talk about this, because I haven't enjoyed it really at all. Some things have happened, I'm like, oh that's not a good thing, but I haven't really felt much for it other than that I need to get through this, because the second one comes out in like a week, next week. It comes out on the 12th of January, and I'm hoping the second one's going to be better. The second one is going to be called Wind Witch. There is a Wind Witch in this book, who I'm assuming is going to be who the title is after. And he's okay. So yeah, I'll try. If this redeems itself, I'll do a book talk. But if not, I probably won't. But I'll try and do one on Wind Witch, because hopefully that'll be a better book. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you for putting up with my cold riddled self. I will hopefully be better for the next video. I've got Fairy Loot coming at the end of this month. Geeky Clean, I think, will probably be the end of this month as well. And there are some new Geeky Clean things coming out, so I might even do a quick video on that, because I believe they are bookish related. I'll have to see. Check me out on Instagram, and I'll be posting stuff on there daily, as much as I can, at least daily. I've got some good stuff going on there at the moment, so check it out. I'll put a link at the end of this video and in the description. Thank you all for watching. See you guys next time.